Okay, we're at Colorado Running Company. It's a great day when I get to talk to Brandon Stapanowich, who is now officially entered in the Barkley Marathons. And that's the way they say it, right? Barkley Marathons. Is that right?
Barkley Marathons.
Barkley Marathons.
Yep.
Gotcha.
My condolence letter came in the other week. So.
Right, the condolence letter. So just give us a little breakdown about this event, Brandon.
It's an interesting event. You say the name, and some people will say, "Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about," but I feel like the majority of people don't. It's an obscure little race in the backwoods of Tennessee, Wartburg, Tennessee, to be exact.
Yeah.
And it's nobody really knows the distance because it changes year to year, and you're not allowed to have a GPS or any sort of way to measure the distance.
Right.
But what we know is you have 60 hours, and it's a 5-loop course, and you do 2 laps clockwise, 2 laps counterclockwise, and then the last lap, whoever comes back first chooses their direction, and each person after that goes the opposite way. And they say it's about 60,000 feet of climbing, so more than Hard Rock, more than any other race in Colorado. It's touted as one of the hardest, if not the hardest, ultra races out there.
That's unbelievable. They must have lots of steep mountains.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The park, I think it only, low point to high point's only maybe 1,000 or 1,500 feet different. But it's just lots of up and down and lots of off trail. The course isn't marked.
Yeah.
You're looking for these books that are hidden in the woods to tear the pages out.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of a mix of Survivor because you're trying to form alliances with people around you.
Yeah.
And Hunger Games because you're just out there on your own.
Yeah. Tell me about entering the race. First, you weren't in, got put on the wait lists.
Yeah. So the whole entry, it's a secret.
Yeah.
There's no official website. There are rumors out there of what you should do and what you shouldn't do, but you don't know what information is true and what's not true. So just figuring out how to apply is like one of the biggest steps.
That's amazing.
And I talked to people who had done the race, but I didn't know what I was getting into, so I wasn't satisfied with confirming it with one person. I asked like 3 different people the same question, and if I got the consistent information, I went with it.
Yeah. And so how did you apply?
I can't reveal too much.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But it involves, it's very non-traditional. It involves an essay.
Okay.
And you have to get it to the race director at a certain period of time.
Yeah.
And then you just wait. And I didn't get in. I got on the wait list.
Yeah.
But as we've drawn closer to the race, I moved up and my condolence letter officially came in.
Yeah. And this thing is a very difficult race. Only one person finished last year, is that right?
Yeah, Jared Campbell, who I ran a little bit with in Hard Rock, and I talked to Jared to get some tips about the race this year. I think in its 30-year history, 14 people have finished. And every year somebody finishes, he changes the course to make it just a little bit harder. He wants it on the edge of what's possible.
Yeah. So what are you doing to train?
Lots of elevation. So it's been pretty boring. Like, it's my type of training. Like, I love just going slow and climbing up and down all day. So it's been a lot of incline.
Yeah.
Lots of incline laps. New for me this year was, so on the course you don't get a GPS, you don't get any sort of navigational help.
Right.
Aside from a compass and a map.
Okay.
So the last compass I used was in middle school to draw circles with.
Sure.
And I needed to beef up those skills. So a friend of mine, Wes, we did a snowshoe orienteering event in Eldora.
Okay.
So I feel it's still going to be a weak point for me, but I at least know like how to turn the dial and hopefully set a line.
And he just runs the course cross country. Are there trails?
There are trails. So it's in Frozen Head State Park in Wartburg, Tennessee.
Okay.
The trails, the established trails, he calls candy ass trails.
Okay. Yeah.
And part of the course is on that, but the large majority is off trail. It's bushwhacking. So you get the official map. Nobody again knows the course. The official map comes out the day before the race on Friday, and there's one map that's passed around camp, and you have to trace it onto your own map. So hopefully my tracing skills are up to par.
Yeah.
And then the race can start anywhere between midnight Saturday and noon Saturday. So there's a 12-hour window. Nobody knows when it's going to start, but Laz, the race director, will blow his conch shell, and the race will start an hour from then. So it could start at midnight.
Yeah.
It could start at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
So that's part of just one of the mind tricks he likes to play with everybody.
Yeah, that's okay. Tell us about him. What's his name?
Lazarus Lake.
Lazarus Lake.
That's one of his nicknames.
Okay.
Gary Cantrell.
Okay.
This is his birth name.
Okay.
Lazarus Lake is his race director name.
Yep.
And really interesting character. There's a Netflix documentary on the race, and you could probably get a better feel for him.
Yeah.
But your first impression is, he's just a country bumpkin and just kind of this out there guy. But he was a runner, and no longer runs, I guess, because of health issues or whatever.
Yeah.
But he has some really intriguing thoughts and philosophies on pain and suffering and challenges. One of the things I picked up from this event is, if you're going to measure something, whether it's your determination or your grit, your perseverance, like your measuring stick has to be bigger than what you're trying to measure. So
Yeah.
I think that's the whole philosophy behind this race. He wants Barkleys to be right there on the edge of possibility that maybe one person, maybe no people can finish,
Yeah.
but everybody wants to do it because they're seeing how they stack up against it.
Yeah. What was the entry fee?
$1.60. And I am to bring a license plate, so I still need to stop at one of the thrift shops in Manitou and pick one up. Now, if you've done the race before, he asks also for another article of clothing. It could be socks, it could be a shirt. It just depends on year to year what he needs in his wardrobe.
That's amazing. And what attracts you to? I mean,
Yeah.
you've done some amazing things.
Right.
The Incline-a-thon, 4 times up and down Pikes Peak twice. What keeps you coming back to these kinds of events?
I mean, it's the challenge. I mean, that's the first answer that comes to my head. I mean, I think I enjoy being outside, and this gives me an excuse to spend a lot of time outside,
Yeah.
just to kind of quiet the negative voices in my head, and it's actually kind of peaceful for me.
Yeah.
The other thing is just learning about yourself, and whether you're building more character qualities or just revealing what you already have inside of you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But those chances to kind of test yourself appeal to me, and hopefully I learn something from it and
Yeah.
be a better person afterwards.
You have plenty of 100-mile experience. Do you think that'll help in this race?
I think so. I think the experience, the experiences that I have definitely give me confidence. I think the biggest things that I'm going to draw on are the Nolan's trip, because that was a 60-hour, 14-14ers, lots of climbing. We had a crew, but out there being self-supported for a good chunk. So I feel like that is going to be very analogous to what I'm going to be doing. And then the Colorado Trail, again, just being out there by myself.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very different. The navigation's going to be, I think, the most unique thing about this. So hopefully I can form some good alliances in the beginning and partner up with some people who know where they're going. And then pay attention and be able to do it on the fifth lap.
How about aid stations? What do they have for you?
It's no aid stations. They claim to throw out a couple of water jugs along the course if you can find them. But they don't man them. They're just water jugs in the woods, and this time of year is notoriously bad, so it could be snowing. Those water jugs could be frozen. You never know. But the loops that you come back to a campground, and you can get some crew and some support there and restock on food. But you're basically going 8 to 14 hours with whatever you need on your back.
Yeah. And so what are you going to carry?
I'm working on those details this week. But lots of food, I think bars, some gels maybe, but trying to do as much real food as possible. There's some streams you can drink out of for water, so I don't feel like I'll need to bring that much, but just have a couple bottles so that I can fill up along the way. The other thing is, since so much of it is off trail, you have to worry about briars. Like that seems to be a big issue. So you kind of hope for a cooler year where you can wear longer clothes and have some protection from that. I had some friends already offer me their Technu and their anti-poison ivy rash cream. So I'm prepared on that front.
You're all set.
Yep.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned tearing pages out of a book. Tell folks how that system works.
Yeah, so you get your race number, and that race number corresponds to the book of the page you're supposed to, or the page of the book you're supposed to tear out.
Yeah.
And every lap you come in, you turn in your pages, and I think last year there were 11 or 12 pages, so you hope that by the end you have them all.
Yeah.
And once he checks your pages, you get a new race number, and you're now supposed to go out again and tear that new number out of each book.
And that proves that you'd made it to that
Yeah,
point.
just checkpoints.
Yep, you got the page from that book at that
exactly.
point. Yeah, okay, got it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, what is your biggest concern, do you think, just heading into
You know, I talking to Jared, he gave me some good advice, and he said, you know, physically, there's no question that you will be able to do this.
Yeah.
And so that you know, that's a good boost of confidence. But then, like, reading behind that statement, it's like, okay, what's the next factor that's going to prevent me from completing it? Because again, only 14 people have finished it. So
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is going to be navigation, managing the elements. You know, it could be snowing, it could be raining, it could be sunny. It's probably going to be everything.
Yeah.
And just having my mindset that, you know, it's not a 5-loop thing. My mind is set on it's a 60-hour thing.
Yeah.
So if I get out there and I get off trail and have no idea where I am for 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, like 2 hours in a 60-hour time frame is just a drop in the water. So just to keep pushing through it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what is there any other races? I mean, this is everybody thinks it's really the hardest races, but how does it compare to, say, Hard Rock or Western States? Or
it's longer than both of those probably. Again, nobody really knows. But just from the time frame, like the course record at Hard Rock is 22 hours or something like that. The course record at Western States is 15 hours, something like that.
Yeah.
The course record at Barkley is like 52 hours, 53 hours. And Laz, you know, it's interesting. He wants like the elite people. He wants, you know, well-known runners to come here to test themselves against it. So it's not like they're just pulling Joe Schmo off the street. Like there's some really credentialed people who have done Nolans and who've done some amazing adventures from all backgrounds, from running, from orienteering, from FKT setters on the Appalachian Trail and PCT. So, you know, I think just from a time standpoint, it's definitely harder than those hundreds. There's certainly longer events too, but this definitely has a unique niche of combining the orienteering and the climbing and just the bushwhacking and everything.
How many people in the field?
It's around 40, I think.
Okay.
He has an allotment for some international runners and some U.S. runners, but keeps it pretty small because the park is small and they can't grow it too much because the size just won't accommodate that.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
that's good.
absolutely. Thanks,